What was your initial reaction to that event?
I felt it because I lived it, especially those 10 years when I worked at Bright House Sports Network, covering sports in the Tampa Bay area, because I established so many relationships with parents in the area. Where it's been affected the most, Preston, what's so different now about working a game than 10 years ago. Now when I work a game and I'm working my boards and I'm filling out names and where these players are from and what they've done, say I'm calling a University of South Florida basketball game. Next to this young man's name is 3 schools that he's gone to before South Florida.
On the TV to start instructing your class on how they probably should react. What would be your coaching moments to your class? How would you talk them through a moment like that on how they should handle that on the air?
Okay, so basically you're going to see it happen. You probably won't know what to make of it when you first see it happen, but then you're going to see the replay and it's going to come up a couple times. And my advice to them, call it for what it is. Would beat 90% of the mid-majors out there and beat them handedly. Now, I get it, Preston. The physicality at the collegiate level is different, but that team was different.
All right, Tampa Bay. I have one of our favorite. I mean, we've got some good guests, but this guy could have been the face of Tampa Bay for a long time. A favorite of mine, a GOAT, if you will, in our area. And let me introduce him first. 3 decades in sports media, currently working for ESPN in football and basketball for special events. He is the play-by-play caller for the tennis channel's Pickleball TV. And if you don't know anything about pickleball, it's growing momentum by the day. A longtime sports anchor for our Bright House Sports Network and a good buddy of mine, Mr. Drew Fellios. Drew, welcome to the show.
Preston, such a delight to be here, man. So great to see you. You're one of my favorite guys I ever had the chance to work with and cover. So this is a real treat, man. Thanks for having me.
And now you're on the side of the interview, and I did with Catherine Smith. I said, so Catherine, what is it like now when you're on that side being interviewed? So I'm gonna ask you the same question. So Drew, what is it like on that side of the camera being interviewed?
I'm kind of used to it. I've done several of these in the past. It's certainly different, because you spend so much time interviewing athletes and coaches and parents and telling their story. It is a little weird, a little different sometimes to tell your story because I was always taught from the early days, Preston, whenever I was working in TV, don't ever try and be the story because it never works out. If somebody wants to ask questions of you, that's a different story, but don't ever really force yourself into a story to try and be a story. So I always try and live by that every time I work. And, but when it's opportunities like this to talk about, just our journey through sports. I mean, I remember, Preston, back in October of 2002, I was working for a CBS affiliate in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we were on the road in College Station, Texas, getting ready for our team, the Huskers, to play Texas A&M that night. It was a night game. So I'm at the hotel, and I'm just sitting. I figure, heck, I'm going to watch my Noles. So I turn on my Noles on that day, and FSU's playing Notre Dame, and there's some guy on the field for Notre Dame who's absolutely knocking our receivers around. And I remember hearing the commentator say that this guy went to Hillsborough High School in Tampa, Florida, and I'll just never forget that day. And I was like, man, who is that guy? And then it was cool. Years later, maybe 2007, 2008, had the opportunity to meet you when you were done with football, working with you. It's journeys like that, stories like that you tell that is why I love sports so much.
You've been around in 3 decades, Drew. You've seen a lot. You've covered a lot. You've broadened your horizons of what you've covered. When I went and did my research on you, and I was like, man, Drew's done a lot of stuff. Like Drew's, like that's a resume for you, right? I'm going to transition this into when you said opportunity not too long ago. there was an opportunity that presented itself to LeBron James when they played one of their most recent games. And this is, I mean, it went viral. He and Stephen A. Smith had a face-to-face confrontation, okay? And when I saw it, the father in me was like, yo, you have to do something, right? You know, his wife's probably pressuring him. He's a dad. You question that man's fatherhood. It's going to be a man-to-man confrontation. However, at the same time, when sports media and covering sports, it kind of feels like maybe LeBron's trying to draw a new line in the sand of what you can't step over. And for sports media, journalists like yourselves, it kind of feels like, well, now there's this invisible force field that we can't approach. All the stories that were stories, all the topics that were topics, if it's too touchy now, we can't touch that. So without there really being a necessary question, I'm going to ask, what was your initial reaction? What was your initial reaction to that event?
I felt it because I lived it, especially those 10 years when I worked at Bright House Sports Network, covering sports in the Tampa Bay area, because I established so many relationships with parents in the area. And some of those parents, Preston, tried to really get close to me, you know, make me really one of their friends or really, but believe it or not, during that day and age, I always kind of kept my distance a little bit, or as much as I could. Was always respectful. Always, when I saw them, conversation and tried to keep the relationships good, but I always kept it professional, because anytime someone was really trying to reel you in like that, they're expecting something in return. And I was always afraid maybe I wouldn't be able to pay that back. I give Stephen A. credit.
Okay.
He calls it like he sees it with LeBron. He obviously sees Bronny as not a full-fledged NBA talent, and he makes that clear. But I think where he may have crossed the line was when he came out on his show and he begged LeBron to stop doing this with his son. And I think that's where LeBron maybe felt like he crossed the line and had to confront him. So it's one thing to call it like you see it, because, yeah, I mean, every athlete, every man in the arena is fair game. If you are a journalist, you have to be able to give fair criticism to everybody as you see it. But you got to be careful with how you cross the line there, because, you know, now in this day and age, everybody's on these podcasts and trying to make their stuff go viral. So there's all kinds of lines that they either get really close to or cross. And in that situation, I think LeBron felt that, hey, enough's enough.
I think once he questioned his fatherhood, it questioned his manhood. Mm-hmm. And I think because LeBron hadn't done his whole NBA, not even his NBA career, his whole high school career, and then including his NBA career, he's never shown that side of him, right? He's always taken everything on that he's had on his shoulders. He's had the burden of the league on him. He's never come at that. And even when folks were really hard on Bronny early, relatively speaking, in Bronny's NBA G League career, he hadn't said anything. But as soon as he questioned him as a father, I think that struck a nerve.
Yes, absolutely. And interesting to see where that goes in the future. You know, think of how many father-sons that have kind of gone through the ranks that we've seen in the past and never really saw a reaction like that. It was quite surreal. I mean, and I think part of it, anytime LeBron does something, he does it for a reason. I think he could have done it behind closed doors, but instead decides to do it right there on the court, knowing that cameras were going to pick it up.
Right.
So, but it does, you know, really remind you of what sports media has become today. And you got to really be careful.
Father, son, let's go father, child. Let's just go to the youth sports. I remember one time, and I'm not sure if you still do this, but you were calling the youth padded championships, which were in Orlando at the time at ESPN Sports Complex, correct?
That was the Pop Warner Super Bowl.
Pop Warner.
I worked it for about 8 years, that event.
Yep. Yeah. So a long time. And now you're involved in the flag football, correct?
Yes. Just had an opportunity to call the Flag Football World Championships at Disney. That was a couple of weeks ago. So completely different spectrum. Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about it. What is the completely different spectrum? Talk to me about that.
Just how the game has changed. It's incredible how it's evolved. I think the sport of football made an incredible adjustment there when it was faced, Preston, with the reality of concussions and what they could lead to. And the sport had to do something. The governing body of the sport had to do something. And you could kind of see it in those years, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, covering Pop Warner football. You could see the numbers started to dwindle just a bit. The organization went into a little bit of panic, didn't really know what to do. And then you saw slowly the evolution of the flag game. First, it wasn't taken very seriously, and now it has become the blueprint, the standard for youngsters, especially ones ages 6, 7, 8. Flag football now is considered the best way to go if a youngster wants to learn the game of football. Now, you can go play the padded version if you want, but this other version now is kind of more so has taken over because it is safer. And I'll tell you what, man, it runs very fluid. I think the officiating's gotten better. The play calling's gotten better. It's very strategic. And I just 2 weeks ago had the opportunity to call my first collegiate women's flag football game. There's a school on the East Coast of Florida, Daytona State College. I helped them get their television department off the ground back in 2017. I still call many of their athletic events, and they had their very first home game. And let me tell you, Preston, these ladies are athletic. They're all recruited from places all over the state of Florida. They fly around the field. These passes are legit, man, tight spirals. And these are really fun athletes to watch. And they won big over Pasco Hernando, a team that's a little bit closer to our area here. But that is off and running, and it is going to continue to grow at major Division I colleges.
We see all the time youth parents getting in the way.
Oh, yeah.
Causing controversy. It even gets physical. How much of a problem, with all your experience of the youth, calling youth games, seeing youth events, and just recently, how much of a problem can parents be?
The worst parents, or I guess I should say the most extreme, I think, come from the baseball field. For whatever reason. That's going back to the early days. I grew up in Tampa playing the game, and you know how that goes, how serious it is on the youth ball fields. But baseball seemed to be the most extreme, where parents felt the most invested to where their child had to, quote unquote, make it or else. Football's probably the least amount. Basketball is also one that where I think you've got, I guess, helicopter parents or parents that can be toxic. But I think where it's been affected the most, Preston, what's so different now about working a game than 10 years ago. Now, when I work a game and I'm working my boards and I'm filling out names and where these players are from and what they've done, say I'm calling a University of South Florida basketball game, next to this young man's name is 3 schools that he's gone to before South Florida.
Oh.
So that transferring effect, a lot of instances, that's not the player. That's the parent.
Yeah.
That's the parent feeding the player or putting it in the player's head. Hey, we're not getting enough here. We got to go here. Or, hey, always thinking the grass is greener on the other side. And what happens in that instance is you don't have athletes that are willing to confront adversity and try and overcome it. That's my fear there. It's like, okay, this isn't working. Let's go somewhere else. Well, that's not always the best solution. Now, I was an athlete. I transferred one time. Right. So I have to be careful. I transferred from Jesuit High School to Leto High School back in, 1991. So I'm guilty a little bit in that respect, but to transfer and go to 4 schools, some of them 5 schools in your college career, that's definitely overdoing it. And I think a lot of that comes from the parent. Hey, this ain't working. Right. Let's go to something else, rather than try and confront the situation in front of us.
It's funny you say that, and just a lighthearted joke on a serious topic. Me and some of my homeboys will get in a circle. I'm like, man, and they're all different sports arenas. I'm like, baseball parents are the worst. Baseball parents, everybody in the baseball park thinks they know everything about baseball all the time. You can hear them chirping, and then the baseball dugouts, they're like low-key talking trash the whole game. The whole game they're talking trash, right? And then, so, you have baseball number 1 and then basketball number 2, because half the people in the basketball arena or in the gym, everybody thinks they're, Chris Paul. Everybody knows everything they know more than the coach all the time, right? So it's funny you put it in that order, baseball, basketball, because I say the same. I say baseball first and then basketball second. And you see it all the time, and it's just it's an awful trend. And then you wonder why we're low on officials. Officials don't want to be in that environment. You look at the numbers with coaching and why people don't want to get involved with coaching, because parents can be an issue, and they don't want to have to deal with the kid and the parent. So with that, Drew, I agree with you. It starts at home. And if you remove adversity, the kids never learn how to handle adversity. It does nothing but, it's a trickle-down effect. It's a trickle-down effect, and it happens all the time. Me and Landis Robinson talked about reclassification at a point, okay? And this is a kind of a big issue that happens. And we kind of spoke on basketball. It's a big deal in basketball now. I think it has always been an issue in other sports, but with social media and how sports reporting is, I think it comes out a little bit more. But let's just talk basketball, reclassification. Cooper Flagg, the projected number 1 pick for the NBA draft, he was a reclass, okay? He moved up to the 2025 class. And Landis Robinson came on and said, hey, if you reclass in high school, you're going to lose a year. So if you're going to reclass, you better do it before high school, because you don't gain a year by reclassification. But just to stay on Cooper Flagg, you had the opportunity to cover Cooper Flagg many a times, okay? And saw his game, evaluated him, reported on him. What is your, just being around Cooper Flagg, tell us something that we don't know about this young man who might be the number 1 pick in the NBA.
Very, very strong family. Mom and dad, extremely demanding on him. And they give the coach free rein. They are not parents that are going to shield their son from adversity and back down from a fight. I mean, they are absolutely bulldogs, man. And Cooper has got that. He's adopted that. This is not a man that has been, or a kid, I should say, that has been spoiled growing up. I remember working some of those games, his mother pulling up in the minivan and Cooper just getting out with his backpack, getting dropped off at the game a couple hours before. And I mean, he kind of reminded me how, it used to be done back in the day whenever, we were playing. I mean, just a very homegrown kid. And he just loves the game, and he's got dog in him. I mean, this guy has absolute dog in it. I'll never forget, and names don't come to the top of my head, but forgive me, but there's a 7'5" or 6" center playing at the University of Florida. I'm sure you've heard of him. He played at IMG last year. Now he's in Gainesville. Well, Cooper was playing against him. It was Montverde against IMG. And this giant checks into the game at maybe about 2 minutes remaining in the first quarter. And Cooper immediately goes right down to the block. And Cooper's 6'9" now, but he's given away, about 9 inches to this guy. Right. Cooper goes right down to the block and says, give me the ball. Like he wants to post this guy up. They give him the ball, and he just does a spin move and just absolutely fakes this guy out of his shoes. Right. And gets 2 points just like that. He is a dog, and he's got Preston, because I've covered a lot of basketball players, and I think he's the best I've ever seen at the high school level. Tough to evaluate because that team he was on at Montverde was the greatest high school team I've ever seen. So when you have so many stars around, it's tough to really, truly evaluate. But Cooper had a sixth sense about him to where he'd go up for a shot and then, bam, last moment would throw a pass and find one of his teammates. You'd be like, whoa, Larry Bird-like. I grew up watching Larry Bird when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I'll never forget so many afternoons with my dad watching him. Cooper's sixth sense of the game reminds me of Larry Bird.
He's averaging, I just pulled the stats of where you were talking right now at Duke. 19 and let's round up to 8. He's averaging 19 and 8 right now at Duke as a true freshman, and obviously he's considered the number 1 pick in the draft. Okay, him and probably Ace Bailey, they're going back and forth. How have you seen his game translate from those Mount Vernon days in high school into these collegiate days at Duke?
Yeah, I still think
he evolved as a player.
There's so much more that can be brought out of his talents. I think his long-range game, he could be one of the best three-point shooters in the league. I think his drive is potent, maybe off the dribble. Maybe if there's one area he maybe needs to improve, that handle just a little bit. But he battles on the inside. Maybe needs to get a little bit stronger too. But his fight, when things get dicey in a game, he doesn't back down from a challenge. And he's wiry. He's loves the game. Feeds off the emotion. Doesn't get rattled in the big moment either. Wants those big moments. And his hands, just his hands. When I say hands, it's a different way of describing it, because the first time he really caught my attention, he did it as a shot blocker. He was playing down low, not his senior year, his junior year, and he blocked about 5, 6 shots in a row during a game. And I just said, man, that guy has got incredible instinct. And then all of a sudden, that year and that summer, he rocketed up everybody's board and became, the Cooper Flagg that we know. But I guess I just say, the potential is through the roof. And once you get him on an NBA floor, the way that game is played with that sixth sense I've been telling you about, it's almost like Messi playing soccer. It's just a different league. He knows what's going to happen before it happens.
Right.
Cooper Flagg has that kind of instinct. Preston, not many players have got that. He's got it.
You've called games with Paul Biacardi, ESPN's college basketball NBA draft analyst, and you've had conversation with him about Cooper Flagg. What would Paul say about Cooper?
If we're asked Paul right here, right now, he'd tell you that Cooper's probably the best high school player he's ever seen. I'm guessing that. Okay. Now, Paul and I had a friendly debate.
Let's go. Last
year. We went at it because I don't just sit there and agree. If I see something I don't agree, we definitely go at it. So Paul has a lot of years coaching in the college game. And, he was an assistant to Rick Majerus. He coached at Boston College. He coached at Utah. So Paul knows the game. But I know the game a little bit too. I've never coached in that arena, but I've been watching it my entire life. Well, Paul said that the team that Montverde had last year would give a college mid-major team basically a handful, would basically take them to the wire, give them. I looked at him. I said, Paul, this high school team would beat 90% of the mid-majors out there and beat them handedly. Now, I get it, Preston. The physicality at the collegiate level is different, but that team was different. You had guys on that team. I mean, Rob Wright, starting point guard at Baylor. You had a kid going to Indiana. You had another going to Maryland who's going to be a lottery pick. That team was not a high school team. That was the greatest assembly of kids under 18 that I've ever seen at Montverde last year. So I said, hey, these guys could beat pretty much every mid-major, and they could beat some, they could compete with a lot of the top 25 teams. So we kind of went at it a little bit. And I think now if you were to ask him that question again, given what Cooper has become, I think his tone would change just just a little bit. When you've coached in college, you stay true to the college game, say, oh, there's such a gap. But for that particular team, those were not high school kids out there for Montverde. Those were men.
Wow. Going to switch sports, and I'm going to soccer. All right? Not American soccer, but soccer as we know it worldwide, okay? Our Tampa Bay Rowdies have been good for a pretty period of time. Not necessarily sure they get the credit they deserve, but the Rowdies have done some good stuff in years past. And they are, obviously, because they're a smaller club, they don't get the coverage like the Bucks do. The Lightning are champions. The Rays are always in the news. They're an 80-plus win team all the time. And then there's the Rowdies. Okay. Drew, talk to me. If I didn't know anything about soccer, why would I attend a Tampa Bay Rowdies game?
Oh, it's an experience. I mean, I was in your seat, let's see, maybe about 10 years ago, and that I had never been to a modern-day Rowdies game. I used to go when I was a child, but I had never been since they had, reinvigorated the franchise and basically made Al Stadium their home. You come to a Rowdies game, you're going to be entertained.
Okay.
The fans are into it. There's constant, action during the game in the stands. You're going to feel it. And it's a beautiful backdrop. You're right on the water in downtown St. Pete. And the product is just outstanding. The brand is timeless. And it's something that the area is so proud of. The team always represents the Tampa Bay area so well. But they always put on a good show, Preston. It's family entertainment. It's fun. And it's high-level soccer. I mean, there are some great players out there. And I guarantee you, if you do decide to give us a try this year, you'll definitely come back. In fact, you let me know when you want to come. I'll have those tickets waiting for you. And I guarantee you, you'll want to come back. But yeah, it's funny. I'll just tell the story quickly too.
Yeah.
How I got into soccer, because I was not a huge soccer fan, say back in like 2010.
Okay.
But I started to have the opportunity to work some games at Disney. And then I had a couple ESPN opportunities. And I told myself, if this sport really takes off, I want to be equipped to do it. I want to know that I could jump into a booth and call it.
Okay.
And 2016, there's a small little franchise that was born in Statesboro, Georgia, called Tormenta FC.
Okay.
It was a brand new little franchise. It was lower level as far as the pro spectrum is concerned. But I went to the owner. I called him. I said, hey, will you let me call your games? He said, yeah. Preston, for 3 years, I drove from Tampa to Statesboro, Georgia for all of their home games to call their games for TV. But I did it because I knew that eventually I may have an opportunity to become the voice of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. What do you know? 3 years later, I get a random phone call from the Tampa Bay Rowdies, 2018. I had never made contact with them ever. And they called me and said, hey, would you be interested in calling our games? That was 2018. Here we are, 8 years later.
The worst thing about the Rowdies are the colors. Do they not have, like, the green and yellow is terrible, Drew. Like, when there's no other color combination that we have, like, that's just bad. Like, it's
very, very distinct, very unique, Preston. Hey, it grows on you a little bit. I'm sure, so the old school, you mean the green and the yellow and the old
stripe.
The kits, they call them. They're kits. They're not uniforms. They're kits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, no, that's me correcting myself. But yeah, definitely very, very unique. Notre Dame is a green and gold school, but it's a different gold, right? It's a different look.
Yeah, that ain't gold. This is yellow, and this is green.
Yeah.
So, as far as their schedule, I'm looking at the upcoming schedule right now. There's Tulsa on the 15th, Miami FC on the 22nd, and then looks like they will start April with Charleston Battery. Who looks to be the toughest competition in that 3-game stretch?
Okay, say it one more time.
They got Tulsa, FC Tulsa. Then they got Miami FC, and then Charleston Battery.
Tulsa, they have their way with every time. Miami FC, that's a W, no problem. That franchise is struggling right now. Charleston's a problem.
Charleston's a problem. Why so?
Yeah, Charleston's a problem. So the old general manager, Lee Cohen of the Rowdies, the guy who was instrumental in bringing me in about 3 years ago, left the Rowdies and he went to Charleston. And he's using the same formula he used here to build them. And that franchise right now is clicking on all cylinders. Charleston is, they're always legit. They always come in here. They always kind of stretch us to our limit. We've gotten the better of them on many occasions, but that's clearly the one on that trio right there that's probably the best game. I would say this, too. If you come out to a game, come out when the weather's good. Come out in April, May, rather than July, August. Games in October are great, too, whenever they're making usually a playoff push. But, you'll be entertained. Food is cheap. Beverages are cheap. And souvenirs, also, you can take one home. It's a fun experience. And then, you can enjoy downtown St. Pete afterwards as well.
Now, I see you just came from Vegas. What was happening in Vegas, Drew?
So, Preston, I got a big milestone in my life coming in August.
Okay.
And, I'm going to be 50 years old. Hard to believe.
Let's go.
I know. And so every year during my birthday, I'm never home. I'm always usually covering the Little League World Series, wherever it is. I call the regionals for ESPN. So I made an agreement with my friends and some of my family. Hey, let's go out. Let's enjoy my birthday, but we can't do it in August. Can we find another date? So we managed to arrange these days, and we were able to see one of my favorite musical artists, Bryan Adams, from back in the day, and then Pitbull also. We saw him on Saturday night at the Fontainebleau. So it was just a memorable weekend, man. We had a great time, and if I didn't live in Tampa in this area, I'd probably live in Vegas. I just love the energy, man. It's pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah. It's this time of year. It's. I'll tell you what, the air is crisp, and Preston, they're building a baseball field right off the strip now, baseball stadium, as they get ready for the A's. The Raiders Stadium's unbelievable, man. Have you seen it? Have you been there? Oh, my goodness.
On TV, I've seen it. It looks fantastic.
Incredible. And then, of course, the hockey franchise is there. You got WNBA there. You've always got a college tournament going through there. And I just like the energy. I like the excitement. I've had some friends move out there for opportunities, and it seems like a very interesting place. But I don't think I'm moving out there anytime soon, but it's definitely intriguing.
See, here's my pushback on you. You gave Paul pushback. I'll give you pushback on this. Okay. Vegas to me is overrated. It's like this big, right? Off the strip, you might got 2 miles. It's this big. The food's not great. It's 1 billion people jammed up between 4 blocks. It's everything's expensive. Everything is crazy expensive, bro. You can't get a steak for under $60 any place in Vegas.
Yeah.
Everything's full. I've been to Vegas maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't know if I have to ever go back. Wow.
Well, I'll tell you what, it sounds like you need to see Vegas through my eyes. So maybe one time, we tag along. I'll make the itinerary. We'll go to select places, select expenses. And that's what was cool about this experience, Preston.
Yeah.
So I put together the whole itinerary from Thursday until Sunday when everyone left. And I was praying for everything to go well, and it couldn't have gone better. Like, everybody was like thrilled. So we stayed in the perfect hotel, not too many people. We were able to get in and out. We ate at awesome restaurants. We got from here to there. Our seats and all the venues for the concerts were great. We saw Michael Jackson, the Michael Jackson show at Mandalay. That was amazing. Everything was perfect, soup to nuts. So maybe if I can go 2 in a row and reel you in, bring you with me, I'll change your opinion a little bit.
Drew, you the man. So also, I'm just looking at my notes. I'm looking at my notes on the show. The Olympic trials for track and field on NBC Peacock last summer. All right. Before we jump into your experiences, since we're on track, did you see the clip of the young lady hit the other girl in the head with a baton?
Sickening.
What in the all-out hell was that?
Sickening. I can't even comment. I would only, it's moments like that. Because I watch that, and sometimes I envision, okay, what if I was calling that race?
Oh,
how would I react?
Okay.
because you always have to keep your composure in the booth. You can't ever just go off the rails when you're watching stuff. But Preston, as I've worked so many events, I did it actually one time. We were talking about Pop Warner football. There was an experience, I think back 2016, where I was calling a game and it was a couple Miami schools playing.
Right.
And one of the kids like literally threw his helmet at another kid, and parents were involved. And, we had pretty much a brawl on the main field. And when you see that blatant disregard for sportsmanship and rules, and you see basically assault happening, it is tough to keep it together when you're calling a game. When you see dirty play, just full-fledged, it's tough to keep it together and not call it out and just come out of the booth and scream at the official, or, because, I mean, I don't have children, but still I feel like, game and safety and everything about it and ensuring athletes, well-being is first and foremost priority. When you got stuff like that going on, that should be an expulsion from the sport right there. What we saw right there. And the fact that she's trying to defend herself from doing that, I think is equally as bad.
Let's take this as a learning moment for those who may want to jump in broadcasting, at the very least communication, right? And you said something, it's hard for you to keep your composure. If you were the instructor of this class, the professor of this class, and you put this moment up on the TV to start instructing your class on how they probably should react, what would be your coaching moments to your class? How would you talk them through a moment like that on how they should handle that on the air?
Okay, so basically you're going to see it happen. You probably won't know what to make of it when you first see it happen, but then you're going to see the replay, and it's going to come up a couple times. And my advice to them, call it for what it is, for how you see it. Call it for what should happen to that athlete or what you think the outcome should be, and move on. Don't linger on it for the rest of the show. Don't continue to go back to it time and again. Don't criticize officials and people. Call it, move on, and let it be. And I think when you do that, it speaks volumes, and it also says something about who you are, because you got to maintain that integrity of the show from start to finish. You cannot become some unhinged fan or parent, as you're calling the game, or someone who shows, partiality to one side or another. So that's the best advice I could give.
So I'm going to take your advice. We're going to move past that event, and we're going to go on to those Olympic trials. All right. So tell me about those Olympic trials for track and field on the NBC and Peacock network that you experienced last summer.
One of the coolest experiences of my life.
Okay.
So much fun, Preston. And this was, something that I had never had the chance to do, just to go to a trials and to participate. I had heard so much about the venue at the University of Oregon and how cool it was, man. The weather was awesome. The Olympic trials is a spectacle, and you've got fans there, Preston. So you've got fans that follow track and field, just like you have fans that follow recruiting, fans that follow soccer or football or baseball. And these fans are so intelligent about track and field. They know times, they know athletes, and 1996 and 1992. And my partner for those events was Dan O'Brien. And Dan was, of course, great decathlon guy back in the 90s. Tried in 92, did not make the Olympic team, came back 4 years later and ended up winning a gold medal in Atlanta, and had such a great run, through that. He's done a nice job in the media, but it was so educational. It taught me a lot. We were kind of on the fly. We didn't, we were doing the stream for Peacock. So we were bouncing around event to event, but we did the decathlon, we did the hammer throw, we did the javelin, long jump, triple jump, and we did it, all these events within about 8 days. And our schedule was pretty hectic, but tell you what, man, it just gave me a new appreciation for that. And the Olympic trials is really something that once in a lifetime. You ever have a chance to do that? To go to a race, Preston, in the evening, the final of the women's 100 or the men's 100 and see how jacked up the crowd gets for it. And that gun goes off, man, and everybody just stands up, and it's just a different type of intensity. And it's one that I had never experienced covering sports. And, certainly I would put that on your bucket list if you have not had the chance to do it just yet.
Who was the most impressive athlete that you saw there? Like one that just stood out, like, oh, he or she was phenomenal.
Oh, man.
I know I put you on the spot.
Yeah. I'd have to, I'll tell you what, the decathlon, Heath Baldwin, young man from Michigan State. We had a bunch of guys on the board, guys who we thought were going to steal the show there. And a lot of them were repeat performance at trials. A lot of them were veterans. Heath Baldwin was one of those guys who just came out of nowhere. He's in his early 20s and he just stole the show. He rocked the house last year and just took that decathlon from everybody else. Now, he didn't fare as well at the Olympic Games than he did in Oregon, just because, the youth, I think, eventually caught up to him. But this is a guy that you've got to keep him on your radar, keep him in your thoughts, because he's going to be heard from more and more for years to come. Heath Baldwin out of Michigan State, just a guy that I think has a lot of blue skies ahead for his career.
Well, we're going to stay with the Olympics.
I'll say this too. There's young lady Parker Valby, who I'm sure you've heard of.
Okay.
East Lake High School, went to the University of Florida, set a whole bunch of records there in the distance races.
Yep.
She was a little bit overwhelmed too at the trials, but still, I loved her get up. She made the Olympic team, went on to compete in Paris, and she's another one as she gets more confident, gets stronger, continues to train. She's obviously got just endorsement, absolutely star potential. She's got a great personality. She's very attractive young lady. She's going to have so many opportunities moving forward. Parker Valby, definitely one to watch in the future.
And if this is the same young lady, I'm thinking of distance runner also of University of Florida, unless it was more than one. Florida has somebody that won gold in the distant races. And if this is the same young lady, she was fantastic.
Oh, so incredible. She goes out there. She wants to run in front. I mean, she does not pull any punches. She wants to get out there, run in front. I think her philosophy changed a little bit at trials because she had kind of a target on her back. She was so dominant at the collegiate level that, once you get to the trials and you've got more savvy runners who have been there, sometimes you have to rethink your game plan to get a dose of what it's like on that stage. But I think Parker got that. 2024 was a huge year for her. And now at the next Olympics, look out. I think Parker Valby, who just signed a big deal with New Balance, Preston, she is going to be, I think, one of the favorites in Los Angeles.
And I may be thinking of her at the college national championships at the nationals.
Yes.
Because I could just see the Florida uniform, which she obviously would not be wearing in the Olympics. But yes, I think it's the same young lady. She was really good in the college national championships. With the Olympics, you've also been involved in the Special Olympics. Okay. Obviously, that's going to be close to a lot of folks' hearts. You would think most of America. What have you learned from that type of competition?
Oh man, Special Olympics it's powerful. I mean, it really grips you. It teaches you lessons. Teaches you how to, just appreciate your own life, your own situation more and more. At first, because I was assigned to cover it back in 2022 for the first time, I covered the American Games at Disney, and then they asked me to go to the World Games in Berlin, Germany, a couple of years back, and just an amazing experience, man. I mean, you see some of the determination. There was one individual, and Preston, he was running the 100-yard dash on his hands. He had no legs.
What?
Running on his hand, and he was winning. Okay. This guy was absolutely amazing. I'll send you the link after we finish this interview. But stories like that, and you see determination like that. And, I've had the opportunity to work the track and field at both of those games. And it was just really a special moment.
That's bananas.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
The determination, and we talk about overcoming adversity, right?
Yeah.
Things get thrown in your direction. How do you overcome them? Special Olympics special. Lastly, we are not going to get out of here without talking about this pickleball craze. All right. It's taken the nation by storm. I've been invited to play pickleball several times. I just feel like, I'm not that old yet. I can play regular tennis. I'm not going to just, but as this pickleball phenomenon, if you will, has taken, because they're building pickleball parks, they're pickleball leagues, it's being televised. You've called pickleball matches. Why is pickleball such a thing now? Why is it so freaking popular?
Okay, it's easy to play and it's easy to pick up, but it's tough to master. It's tough to really be great at it. It's easy to be good at it. It's tough to be great at. It's just a whole lot of fun too. Tennis, larger court, heavier ball. Tennis, it's hard to establish long rallies, especially if you're just getting started. Pickleball's a completely different beast. You can have nice long rallies and a real great time. I recommend playing doubles whenever you first go out there. So play 2 versus 2, and you just jump in a game. It's a very friendly game. You go out to the park. If you just go out there with your paddle press, you can jump right in anywhere. And let me tell you, man, Terrell Owens is now a pickleball fanatic. Drew Brees, I've done events where he is loving this game. Who else? David Pollack, former ESPN broadcaster. I worked an event last year, and that's his new favorite craze. Danny Werfel, it's all he does every day is play pickleball.
Wow.
I mean, it's not just a hobby. It's a way of life. Rick Barry, legend, playing basketball, is pickleball is his mainstay now in his senior years. It's different. It's a way of life. It's funny. I got asked to do my first pickleball event. It was 2018, and it was down in Naples. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And you know how we say, Preston, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put that check in the bank, and that's it. I'll probably never do this again.
But man, what happened?
Was I wrong? I mean, and to be honest with you, and I've been honest with you, of course, through this whole interview, but 2018, after I worked my first pickleball event, I thought that, okay, that would probably be it. And then the pandemic happened and all the sports got wiped out in 2020. And in 2021, January of 2021, I got a call to do pickleball again. So I thought to myself, okay, well, there's nothing else going on. Let me give this another shot. And Preston, I show up in Arizona at the courts in Mesa, Arizona. And I was told to go over to this court and watch this mother-daughter play because they just won a tournament a couple months back, and they're really fun to watch. So I go and watch this mother-daughter. The girl was 13 years old. Her name is Anna Lee Waters.
Okay.
And I started watching, and she was playing 2 girls, Callie Smith and Jessie Irvin, 2 mainstays in the game, 2 ladies that are in their early 30s, late 20s. They had both had big-time college tennis careers. These 2 women were developed. They were pros. Anna Lee was a baby at 13. And I'll never forget how Anna Lee just stepped up and was just battling and was just gaming. And I was like, whoa, who is that? 13? I couldn't believe my eyes. Preston, you've seen a lot of football recruits come through. There's very few that you can really remember where you were like, whoa. Who's that? And then, they go on to great things. Anna Lee Waters was one of those kids, like a Cooper Flagg. I was like, man, this is different. Well, today, Anna Lee, she's 18. She's the #1 undisputed player in the world. She's the face of the sport. And watching her journey has been an absolute thrill over the past 6 years from me. So little things like that, you get attached to the sport, you see the stories, and it makes you get into it that much more.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I pulled up the rankings. I went to Pickleball Cafe, and as you say, Anna Lee Waters, she's number one. She's 18 years old. And then there's an Anna Bright behind her at 25 years old. And then the ages kind of, they vary, right? So it looks like a very diverse, I guess, pool of players, 45, 32, right-handed, left-handed. And these are all just according to Pickleball Cafe. But this Anna Lee Waters at 18 years old, 5'6", right-handed. Me and you talked off air about her. I wouldn't watch some film, and I'm just an evaluator at heart. But she's super quick, agile. She's a quick reactor. She kind of sees the game a little differently. She anticipates. And obviously, you're on a smaller court than a tennis court. However, has like these cat-like reflexes.
Footwork.
Oh, absolutely. It's very smooth and crisp.
It's just, the footwork, Preston, is different than knowing what's coming next. And the desire, the will to win. Because you've got ladies, like I said, they've been pros for years. They've had big-time college tennis careers. Some of them have played pro tennis. You would think that they would be able to knock Anna Lee off, or, Anna Lee would have more of a harder uphill climb. But Anna Lee's got that determination, that will, that is really second to none. Now, I'll give you a little backstory too, if you want to glance at that list. See if you can find a Tyra Black on that list as well. Tyra Black has a nickname, Hurricane Tyra Black. Hurricane Tyra Black is sort of like the African-American face of the sport, Preston. She is, again, incredibly talented. She came into the sport. Her pro tennis career kind of fizzled a little bit, was looking for a change. And she led the charge for the team pickleball, the Major League Pickleball, from the female perspective. She crushed it and won a title with the Dallas Flash last year. But she's another one to really watch. But as far as who's going to be the next Anna Lee, well, I don't think it's going to come from someone coming out of the tennis world. We thought 5 years ago, well, just wait. A lot of tennis players are coming over and they're going to start dominating. No. Pickleball's gotten too established now. That next Anna Lee challenger is going to have to come up, I think, through the ranks like Anna Lee did. I don't think it's going to be a girl like a Collins, coming from the tennis pro circuit, who's going to come right to pickleball and start taking players out, because pickleball, the players have gotten too good now. The level of play has gotten too good. So that person's going to have to be one who kind of comes up through the ranks, I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've seen. So
it's not necessarily it's not that they don't correlate, because they obviously do. But you're saying that just because you're a great tennis player does not necessarily mean you're going to be a great pickleball player.
100%. Couple examples. A couple years ago, there was a player. His name was Jack Sock. Jack made the conversion from tennis to pickleball. He's about 30 years old, in his prime. He had played in a couple Olympics. He had was a doubles champion, decorated doubles champion, had some success in singles. This guy was a legit tennis star, making the transition to pickleball. And Jack is somewhat plateaued. He's a top 25 player, but he has not been able to break into that top 5, top 10 consistently. On the female side, a young lady by the name of Jeannie Bouchard. She was a Wimbledon finalist a few years back, made the transition to pickleball. We thought, oh, here it comes. She's going to dominate. Here come those tennis stars. And Jeannie absolutely was humbled her first 4 or 5 events playing in pickleball. So I just don't think that next champion is going to be a convert. I think it's got to come from within, or it's just got to be someone who comes along very slowly. The skill set, Preston, it translates definitely, but only to a certain extent. Pickleball, it's a lot faster. It's a different sort of hand-eye coordination and more like quick twitch. Kind of like I say football, 11-man football, arena football, sort of a parallel there, how different the games were.
Yep.
I would sort of compare it to that a little bit.
And I kind of I compare it to when padded football coaches get into girls flag football. And my biggest thing is, hey, don't come into this girls flag football space thinking that padded football game translate wholeheartedly into that space. It's not like that. Flag football is a lot quicker, a lot more creative. It could be a lot more tricky, and the way that you coach girls is differently. And let me take that back. The way that I have seen girls respond to certain coaching is different. You can't come at them like you do boys and scream and yell and rant and wave and expect them to respond. My experience has not been that with a lot of girls that I have coached. You can't coach them the same way. It's like to know your personnel. Know who you're coaching, how to get them to respond, and they are very resilient. But that flag football is not the same as padded football.
Yes.
Right? Now, I'm not letting you off the hook without giving you this, and I did not give you this question in our prep on purpose. I'll give you probably 30 seconds to prepare. All right?
Okay.
And your 3 decades of covering, journaling, broadcasting, all this great stuff. You got your grandson or your niece or nephew, and you're sitting them on your lap, and you say, these are the top 5 athletes I've ever covered. All right. You're on the clock. You have 20 seconds to prepare. I'll keep talking for 20 seconds. I'll give you that. So you're going to have to give us your top 5 athletes. And they don't have to be in order. We'll put them in a pool for right now. The top 5 athletes that you've ever covered and a quick reason why. All right.
Okay.
All right. Whenever you're ready, you have the floor.
Okay. Well, let's start where we left off. I think because pickleball I think it's been a gift from God to me. And it's been something that has come into my life that I never thought would have happened 10 years ago. So I'm very grateful for it. I think Annalee's been special, watching her development and watching how her parents have brought her along and watching how she has responded and handled that arena and kind of taken the mantle of the sport and kind of run with it. I think that's been something fun to watch. Also got to mention on the men's side, Ben Johns is another one, the face of the sport, watching him, how gracefully he's been and how well these 2 athletes have treated me. I appreciate how, they've handled my interviews, not being a natural pickleball guy, but a guy who's, over the years kind of grown into the role. So that's definitely one. Got to include Cooper Flagg in there because Cooper to me is the epitome of student athlete. It doesn't get any better than that. From talent, the way he handles his business, the way he goes out there and competes, the way he battled, that's a pro guy on a high school floor when I was covering him. And, you learn a lot from these athletes when you watch them compete, really, really cool. I'm going to throw in a coach here.
Let's go.
Bobby Bowden had a big impact on my life. The 2 years that I had a chance to cover him, I'll give you a little story. So I would go interview him, and me and my competitors from the other stations would go interview him in his office, and we had to get past a checkpoint to do that. Miss Sue was his secretary. Okay. We had to get by Miss Sue to get into the office. Well, one day I show up at the office, Miss Sue's not there, and the door's cracked open in his office. So I figure, okay, let me just put my big tripod in the office and get it set up. So when Coach gets here, I'm in place and I don't have to, scramble to get set up, and maybe that'll be more efficient. So I'm putting my tripod down, my camera on the tripod, and I hear the bathroom. I hear a flushing of a toilet, and I hear someone coming out of the bathroom. I'm thinking to myself, oh no, Coach Bowden, this is his private time, and I'm invading his office, and he's going to let me have it.
Right.
He walks out of the bathroom, Preston, and he looks at me, and he's a little bit startled, but he says, "What do you say, boy? What you need?" I said, "Hey, Coach, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm just here, want to ask you a few questions." No problem, man. Yeah, let's do it, And watching the media, because that was during the Peter Warwick, era when there was some adversity there that he had to go through. Remember the old Dillard scandal, the way Coach handled it and the way he handled it with grace. I'm a guy who try and live, Preston, with the Bible as my, as my blueprint. And Coach Bowden did that. And watching how he handled people was awesome. So Coach Bowden, huge effect on my life. Some others. Derek Brooks.
You're at 4. Hold on.
Derek Brooks.
Listen, you got 4 right now. If you're adding Ben Johns in there with Anna Lee, that takes up 2 spots. So you're Anna Lee, Ben, Cooper, Bobby.
Okay, let's do Anna Lee. Let's do Cooper. Let's do Bobby.
All right.
Let's throw Derek Brooks in there.
DB.
Just because he's there's a guy that I just respect a lot. We just, knew each other way back in the day at FSU, and watching him come to my favorite team and do what he did, just amazing stuff over the years. I'm going to go to the high school field for the other, man. And, man, it's tough to really say who's the best. So many great athletes we covered, but I think James Wilder in high school was probably one of the best athletes I've ever had the chance to cover. James Wilder, the son of the great James Wilder, played for the Bucks, and this guy went on to Florida State to play college football and now doing good things in the Tampa Bay area, mentoring athletes and coaching them. But watching him play in high school was really, really special.
This is kind of awesome because at the very least, myself, you, and Catherine had 2 of the same 5. We all 3 said James Wilder Jr., and we all had Derek Brooks in there. So the way that we look at these athletes and these leaders, if you will, is much the same. You and Catherine, all 3 of us in the media in some aspect, but you and Catherine have just a buttload of experience, and the people that you've covered. With you and Catherine have it's such a broad spectrum, and me more dialed in. For us to say the same 2 people speaks volume for those people. Yeah. It speaks volume how good James was. I look at James as an athlete, he was just phenomenal. And I see him more at Chamberlain than I do at Plant. He was phenomenal. And then the way that everybody in the community just respects Derek Brooks, it's just awesome.
Yeah. It was awesome. Oh, and maybe one other, if there was a number 6, the late great Jose Fernandez, when he was playing at Alonzo, great pitcher, great hitter, went on to play for the Florida Marlins, and unfortunately life was taken so short, when he passed away in that boat accident. But I had the chance to sit down with him in his backyard, Preston, and he told me, he said, I want to be a great player in Major League Baseball. I want to be a Hall of Famer. And he went in and he immediately, very short stint in the minor league, right up to the major league level. And the kid just did amazing things and led Alonzo in Tampa to a state title. And this kid was he was different. He was different. And when you get guys like that who come along, they definitely leave a mark on you. Jose, he left a mark, man. God rest his soul.
We're going to drop the mic right there, man, for 3 decades covering sports media, ESPN football and basketball special events, play-by-play caller for Tennis Channel's Pickleball TV, and the voice of the Rowdies, longtime sports anchor for Bright House Sports Network. Man, Drew Fellios, this has been a good one, my man. I so appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you, Preston. Anytime, man. Best of luck with the show.